and start the broadcast.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joined this past community webinar from the Professional Development VC. Today I'm going to quickly give you a bit of an overhead of community news from past, and then we're going to pass over to Brent, who will take us through the webinar that he has recorded for us today, or will be recording. So here we go. So first up,
are you sharing your desktop? Are you sharing your desktop?
I should be. Let me just do that now, if I'm not already. Okay, is that already?
There we go. Perfect.
Okay,
yep,
apologies
there you
for
go.
that. So
yeah, there we go.
On the screen you should see the Summit 2016 page. So this is the conference that you're all aware is our kind of yearly annual conference, normally held in Seattle, and this year again it will be in Seattle. It's our largest professional development and main SQL Server and Azure and BI data platform sessions around. So come along to the session, come along to the conference and enjoy all of the material that's there. There's 200 plus sessions. You're aware that it's probably community-led speakers as well as some Microsoft speakers will be there. And these are the opportunities also to network and connect with all your fellow professionals. We do have a discount code. Unfortunately, it's not listed on the screen there. I will make that available shortly at the end of the presentation. I'll just go and find that while we're doing the presentation. Move on to the next slide. You're also probably aware that virtual chapters are a big service offering from PASS. And these are effectively, like we have today with the professional development, the 1 hour or longer webinars that you can connect to and watch, and the recordings as well from previous historical webinars that have been run. And there's covering all the range of different topics, from PowerShell to new beginners, virtualization. We have all the different language ones. And if you're DBA or developer or you're an architect, there's something for everyone here. So have a look at what's on there. Go to sqlpass.org/VC and register for all of the VCs that you can be interested in. And you'll get notifications around when those next ones are being recorded and being shown. And here's a quick kind of look at what those are. So obviously today, during the first, we have 2 VCs actually running. One in a couple of hours, the PowerShell one, and one right now with Brent doing his guide to going into consulting. But also you see there's a number of hours that are happening later in the month, and this is just a snapshot of what's available. So please kind of make sure that you, from time to time, take a look at what's there and sign up for the ones that are interested. And a few more. And you probably also may have been to a SQL Saturday. If not, this is something you may want to consider doing in the future. SQL Saturdays are normally 2-day events. Usually one day, being a Friday, is the pre-con day for most SQL Saturdays. And that's a low charge kind of pre-conference full day with 1 or more speakers available to choose from. And on the Saturday, this being the free event, so we're up to in the high 500s now of events that have been held. And they're held across both North America, but internationally as well. So you can see a whole list of ones. June the 18th, Dublin, I'm going to be at that one again presenting. And I've done a whole bunch of the ones in the US. I think actually I'm around about 47 myself presented at different SQL Saturdays so far. So go to sqlsaturday.com and have a look at the different ones available in your area. PASS as an organisation thrives on its volunteers, like myself and Janice, who's also one of the chat leaders, and Brent, who's also presented today. These are folks that come along and present and make their time available to put these training events on in place. So that's including SQL Saturdays and all of the local chapters around the world, the ones that you really want to kind of become a part of. If you want to find out what volunteering is about, you want to kind of put your name forward for some volunteer, go to volunteer.sqlpass.org and put your details down of what you're looking for. And that doesn't have to be a huge involvement to start with, but kind of just reach out and you'll find that the rewards for volunteering are extensive and there'll be a lot more than you would ever anticipate. And it gives a little bit back to the community that maybe you've taken some learning from over the years. And this is exactly how I got involved to start with, was sort of small volunteer, and then I grew into become a chapter leader for both the London and the professional development over time, and I've done lots of help at the different SQL Saturdays as well. And just remember to stay involved. We have, Facebook, LinkedIn, but predominantly probably Twitter is probably one of the key ones you'll see if you use the hash SQLpass or at SQLpass to follow the Twitter account. And go to SQLpass.org and look at what's on there. There's lots of recordings, lots of information. And just reach out to your local chapter leaders and ask them what's available. And they will be happy to give you information about what you can kind of access. You'll be surprised at the breadth of information available out there from SQLpass. So that's pretty much it for the one. Now I'm going to change over presenter now. So let me just take a second to bring Brent online. So
right.
Hopefully you should have Brent up on your screens now.
Let me fire that off away so you guys can see. Hopefully now you are seeing the PowerPoint deck that says how to become a consultant or contractor. Can you see that one now, Neil?
Yes, I can, and I'm going to mute myself now so there's no background noise, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, adios. So hi, everybody. I'm going to talk about how to become a consultant or contractor. A little background on myself. I run a consulting company that happens to have my name on it. Funny how that worked out. Started a small consulting company with 3 of my closest friends, and then gradually grew it up to the point where now we have 7 full-time employees, which is kind of terrifying to think that that many people have my name on their paycheck, so to speak. We also do stuff like SP Blitz and SP Ask Brent to help make other consultants' lives easier so that you don't have to go reinventing the wheel. What I want to start off by telling you about is what it was like when 2005, when I wanted to go find a job. I was moving from one place to another, and in my new city, my old company wouldn't let me telecommute, so I had to find a job in my new city. I had a heck of a bad time. I had a horrible time. I would go and send out resumes. I would talk to headhunting firms, recruiters, trying to say, hey, I'm really good at this database thing. And I never said I was really good because back in 2005, I wasn't all that good, but I enjoyed it. And I struggled one after another, went through interviews, and people would say, well, we really want someone with a computer science degree, or, well, we really want someone with 15 years of IT experience. Or I just had one heck of a time breaking through that wall. I bet a lot of you out there feel exactly the same way. You feel like you're talking to a wall whenever you go talk to headhunters, recruiters, deal with brand new interviews from scratch. Today it's different for me. Today I have this company and I'm working with people that I'm really proud to work with that challenge me to do better, and we get excited to share what we love in the community. And it was a long way between 2005 and the way things are today. What I'm about to talk through is a map. It's a map of how I made a journey from one place to another in my career. This isn't necessarily the one that you want to take. We're going to talk about other destinations and other routes that you can get to as well. Mine certainly is not the only right way. There are lots of right ways. But I want to show you some of the struggles along that journey so that you understand which journey is right for you and which destination is right for you. When you think about becoming a consultant or contractor, it really boils down to 4 things. First, what is your product going to be? We like to think that the product is us, and that's kind of sort of true, but you want to be a little bit more focused than that, because someone isn't just going to reach out and buy you. They don't know who you are or what it is that you do. So we need to define it a little bit better and talk about exactly what your product is. Then, after you've chosen your product, you need a brand for that product. For example, if I want high-speed internet, there's half a dozen companies out there that do it. If I want to go buy a car, there's maybe 24 companies out there to do it. And each one of those, while they're solving the same problem, has a slightly different way of appearing. They have different brands. We're going to talk about how to determine what your brand would be. Then marketing is the matter of advertising your brand out to people so that when people think of you, they think of several keywords that describe you well. And then this is also what people think of as advertising. When I have a SQL Server problem involving replication, who do I think of and who do I go call? Or do I just go Google and find out who to call that way? So I'll start from the top down and talk about what your product is going to be. In order to understand what that is, we need to think about what people are going to be willing to pay you money for. And in order to do that, we're going to play a game. Normally when I do quizzes with database administrators or developers, you have to track scores and you have to write down, and at the end it's like a Cosmo quiz and you figure out where you rank or what you need to do differently. Here, you don't have to write anything down. I just want you to think through a few questions. And the answers to the question are going to be the same every time. I'm going to give you a pain that you have to go relieve, and you're going to have several options to choose to relieve that pain. Imagine that you're the customer, and we're going to talk about scenarios that will ring true to you. The customer who needs to solve a pain, which one of these relief options are you going to choose given that pain? So let's start with the first pain. You're building a brand new Microsoft SQL Server. Hey, SQL Server 2016 comes out today. The timing is perfect. And you want to know what the best practices are for configuring TempDB. And coincidentally, with SQL Server 2016 coming out today, the best practices change. It's funny how that works. So if you want to know the best practices to configure TempDB on your brand new SQL Server, how are you going to relieve that pain? Which of these options are you going to choose? Go ahead and read through that list for a minute. Let me give you another pain. Your application that you've already deployed, it's out in the live, people are using it, does a lot of work in TempDB. Maybe it's using read committed snapshot isolation, maybe it's creating temp tables, maybe it's using table variables, hash joins, it's built to disk, whatever. It's slow, and there's a lot of users who are complaining. Now that people are complaining about the length problem, I'll give you another pain. Your application is still slow after you and your team have spent a lot of money, or not a lot of money, a lot of time reading through things on the internet. You've been reading through stuff on Stack Overflow. Maybe you've even posted a question on dba.stackexchange.com. And the slowness is causing your business to be unable to sell products. Great example, I had a sports team who every time they won a game, their website would fall over because everyone wanted to get in and start buying stuff, but TempDB still couldn't hold up. They were losing millions of dollars a day. Now, which one of these options are you going to choose? Let's take another route. You've decided to offload your read-only reporting queries. You want to offload them to another server. Your business is tired of doing reports in production and it's slowing the website down. So like, all right, if we start running our reporting queries somewhere else, how should we do it? Should we do it with log shipping, transactional replication, always on availability groups, just plain old backup and restore? How do I pick which features I want to use in order to scale out reads before I get started? Which pain relief option are you going to choose there? Next up, the replication of the reports server keeps breaking, and your reports show old data. Your users are starting to get frustrated that whenever they're running analysis reports, these things are a day or 2 days behind. Then you have to go in and do manual labor in order to fix replication. Maybe you're taking another snapshot, reinitializing it from backup. Now how do you go about fixing that pain? Then let's take another scenario. Replication keeps breaking, and when you reinitialize it, either with another snapshot or if you happen to have to take a backup in the middle of the day, your primary server falls over, the one that's actually selling products, and your website goes down as well. Now, how do you want to relieve that pain? Odds are you're starting to notice a pattern here. The more severe the pain is, and the more urgent it is, the more likely money's going to be involved. The less urgent it is, and the less painful it is, the less likely money is going to change hands here. The services market for IT, and really all kinds of services, break down into this little four-part grid. Are we talking about urgent problems or not urgent problems? And are we talking about business pain, yes or not? Yes or no? It's not just about your pain as a geek, you know, me as an IT geek. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm feeling the pain. Does someone with the money feel the pain? The business, is there sales involved or losing money? So let's talk about the top left one first. Pains that are not urgent and have mild or no business pain involved in them. These are things like, I was wondering if, or I'm building a new thing and I'm thinking maybe, or a pain that hurts me personally, but maybe the end users aren't complaining about it. For example, fragmentation is high and I'm trying to figure out the best way to fix it. If there's no business risk or pain or emergency, we're not talking about real money the business is going to lose if we don't solve it, then what you're going to do is you're going to go read blog posts, YouTube videos, hit Stack Exchange, and so forth. So if you want to be a consultant or a contractor that fixes these pains, you want to build blog posts, you want to record YouTube videos, you want to build scripts for the public to use. You're not going to make any money off of this. It's very hard. You could make money. You take Panal Dawe of SQLauthority.com, vendor webcasts. There are ways that money changes hands. It's just not spectacular money. It's very tiny pieces of money, and it's typically indirect revenue, like an advertiser is paying you to solve that pain. You will reach a lot of people because this is how the world solves their non-urgent, non-mission critical pains. They just go to the web and they get answers for free. That's what you do, right? You just go hit Google and you go find somebody's site. So if we're looking to figure out what people pay us for and what our product is going to be, that box isn't going to work. It may work long term. It's not going to work enough that you can get some revenue underneath you and start to take flight. So let's talk about urgent but mild or no business pain. In this box, examples include, man, my restore is taking forever. My users keep asking me when my development box is going to be ready. Not production, but development. When is this development box going to be back up and running online? The urgency typically comes from you or users without budgets. This is not when the CIO comes running in and is like, dude, you got to fix this right now. This is when the urgency is coming from someone else, like me or you, going, man, I would really be happier if this thing would finish faster. Oops. In here, what you do is watch for Q&A sites, places where urgent questions and answers take place. SQL help on Twitter. If you're a Twitter user, follow that hashtag and you'll see all kinds of interesting urgent problems. Or Stack Exchange is my personal favorite. There are other forums, MSDN's forums, SQLteam.com's forums. I just happen to like these the best. You can solve these for a living. That's probably what you're doing if you're watching this session. You are probably an IT professional who has to go solve these pains. People come running into you going, my query is slow, I need to make it go faster. I need to, change the way that this application works. You can totally do that for a living, database administration jobs, systems administration jobs. And that work isn't going to go away. People will say, oh, but the cloud is going to take our jobs. No, it's not. You still have these same problems like a query runs slow up in the cloud. The thing is, if you're going to do this for a living, be comfortable doing it for a living. It's just not a consultant or a contractor. You're just spending your life doing administration and help work, and you're always going to be working with strangers who never seem to get better. Same thing with Stack Exchange. If you go in, there's going to be a never-ending flood of people who go, why is my query slow? And they put the query up there, and you're going to take them on a journey in order to improve their knowledge. You're going to explain things to them. It's nice. It's fulfilling. You see that you make a difference. But when you're done putting an hour into that, you're going to turn around and there's going to be another 1,000 people waiting in line for that help. I can answer questions myself on Stack Exchange from time to time because it is super fulfilling. You just have to know that there is no money changing hands. You're doing this for the good of it, just that you love doing it. You're not going to get rich in that particular box. Let's talk about the next box. So now we're over in the severe business pain column, but we're talking about non-urgent pains. Examples of this are, well, reports are taking forever, and we've decided we're just going to bite the bullet and go build a data warehouse. Nobody urgently builds a data warehouse. You want to plan that out. You want to measure twice and cut once. You want to bring an expert in who's done it a whole bunch of times and can tell you pitfalls to avoid. They will not do it under the gun. This is something that you're going to build out a project plan for. The other example on the slide is spectacular too. The SAN is really slow. We've got this, $500,000 piece of shared storage, and we want to make it go faster, but if we change that thing live in production, that's risky. We're going to think a lot about it. And maybe we don't even change it live. Maybe we go build a brand new sand. We go buy one of those fancy solid state sands, for example, that goes way faster than our old refrigerator-sized boat anchor. The business knows that it's severe, and there is real money involved, but there is also a real timeline involved. These are long drawn-out paid engagements that involve budgets, approvals from lots of people. Typically, there's going to be a CIO, CTO, business users that all want to sign off on the approach that we take, how you build out the project plan. There's going to be teams of people. No one brings in a lone gunman to solve these kinds of problems. There's teams of folks who are all working on tackling this problem. And the larger that the problem is, and the larger that the pain relief is, the longer the sales cycle will take. What I mean by sales cycle is, say that the business approaches each other and says, all right, we've just agreed that we're going to fix this thing. Let's go start Googling for people that we're going to find to fix it. And it costs a bunch of money and time for them to go through and narrow down all the vendors that are available to them and which ones are going to be the best partner. When they're facing a problem like this, they tend to hire experienced communicators. And what I mean by communicator is someone who can bridge gaps between multiple teams, who can put things into terms that all of the different teams can understand. And I use examples of science communicators, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Alton Brown, Adam Savage, because those people use concepts very quickly. Companies look for the same kind of personality. Then they will also bring in multiple hands-on doers. Alton Brown isn't cooking your food. Adam Savage isn't building your TV stand. These people are communicating concepts quickly to other doers, and then the doers go off and do the work. Typically, this means there is a large consulting company involved or a large contracting company involved that pools together resources from multiple places. It can be kind of confusing because you'll see these same issues pop up online too. If you watch Stack Exchange, SQL Help on Twitter, people say, I got $1 million sand, it's running slow, what should I do? The people who are asking this are actually the ones who were hired to fix it. They're just in over their head and they need some help. It's good to help them. I was helping someone on SQL Help this morning who actually jokingly said, now I can bill my client thanks to the answer that Brent gave me. That answer didn't cost me anything. I wasn't going to get that client anyway. These aren't competitors. The guy already has that client. If I can make his life easier in 60 seconds, I'm going to go do it. So it's up to you, though, if you want to decide to solve these kinds of problems. If you can solve them online, know that you are not going to get paid for that, and be at peace with that. You're just doing it for the comfort and joy of helping other people. So let's talk about the last box. Severe business pain and very, very urgent. For example, that sports team who every time their website would fall over because they would win a game and everyone wants to wear the winning team's jersey. So their jersey sales would go through the roof and their website would immediately fall over. Or, as Neil and I were talking about in the pregame show, the database is corrupt and our business has stopped. The business at this point, the executives, the CEO, CTO, CFO, all these people, have decided that they need to improve something, and money is maybe not an object, but much less of a concern, because the alternative cost of not taking action is stratospheric. If you don't fix the corrupt database, the business is going to stop. If you can't sell jerseys, the business is going to lose millions of dollars. In this case, there is a very short time cycle here. The business is all right, what do we got to do? Come on, we got to get an answer for this within 2 hours or something, or 3 days. The sales cycles on this are extremely short. You don't have to spend a lot of time grooming a relationship with the customer. The customer walks in, grabs you by the shirt and goes, you, get over here now, start working on this SQL server. Again, like with the last one, these issues will pop up too. They will pop up online. People will come up online and say, my server is down, the database is corrupt, the business is stopped. Just know that you're not likely to make any money from those. It's just a great positive thing to go help people with stuff like that. You will feel better. You'll actually gain experience too. And as a weirdo side thing, when other people are Googling for problems, sometimes they'll see that you helped someone with that exact problem, and they'll say, all right, we should go hire him for that because he clearly solved this problem once before. When a real mission-critical business server is down, the business, like the CTO, CFO, they don't post it on a forum. They go pick up the phone and call somebody. They go hit Google and go find somebody because they want to get pain relief as quickly as possible. At large companies will often keep a full-time team of experts on staff. Just using an example from the public GoDaddy.com, for example, U.S. domain name registrar kept us a herd of SQL Server people on staff, including a Microsoft certified master, to put out SQL Server fires whenever they occurred. The smaller companies can't afford to maintain that team of experts. Larger companies also have relationships with very large consulting companies or very large contracting companies. Think IBM, HP, Dell, companies with ginormous services divisions where they have an army of consultants and contractors ready to tackle all kinds of problems. If Walmart has a problem with their SQL Server, Walmart's not calling me. Walmart's calling whatever giant consulting firm that they have a relationship with and saying, get somebody with SQL Server experience on the phone, stat. Or these companies will call their hardware vendors or software vendors, even Microsoft, in order to get help. Walmart isn't going to call you either. So for large companies, if you want to solve large company big urgent pains, you go to work for a large consulting firm. If you want to help small to mid-sized companies, this becomes a little bit interesting. They may not be large enough to have a full-time team on staff, and they may not be large enough to have ongoing relationships with large consulting companies. For example, for me personally, very few of our customers are Fortune 100 companies, for example. We tend to work with small to mid-sized type companies because they've already learned and been burned by calling other companies for support. They want someone who can just immediately parachute in and make one heck of a huge difference. In here, they usually need someone to perform the work right now when it's highly urgent and severe, and you're dealing with short sales cycles. Typically, when someone contacts us for support, it doesn't drag into a week-long negotiation. People, after hearing our sales pitch, are like either, yes, we're interested, or no, you're not. No, we're not. This is a double-edged sword. If you're hearing this, you're going, oh, this sounds awesome. I want to do exactly what you do. But there's a gotcha. We go through customers like that because, after all, if it's a short problem to fix, it's very urgent. People don't keep you on board for 6 months to fix a corruption issue. People get you on board and out within a week in order to fix a corruption issue. So you got to be super hungry if you want to be independent, continuously solving urgent business pains. You've got to have your name out there so people know exactly what product you have and how they're going to go about buying it from you. Your product as a consultant or contractor is pain relief. The reason that they're hiring you is to relieve some kind of pain. You need to start by identifying what kind of pain you're going to relieve. The more focused you can be, the more specific you can be about what you solve, the easier it is to explain to people what you do. And the more urgent and severe the business pain is, the more likely you're going to get paid. The less severe the business pain is, the less likely you are to get paid. This isn't by any means the definition of here's exactly the product you're going to build. This is really only the starting point in your journey about which product you're going to offer. You can either do non-urgent severe pains, in which case you go to work for a large consulting firm that works on large projects and you're on there for, say, months at a time or years at a time, or very urgent pains, things that have to be solved in 24 hours, 48 hours. You can also still be a large company employee, but you can also be an independent consultant that focuses on a very specific pain. Just know that you're going to have a really heavy sales cycle, really short and quick, lots of them. So we talked about the first thing that's involved with becoming a consultant or contractor, picking what your product is and what pain that product relieves. Next thing you're going to have to think about is, all right, what's my brand going to be? My personal brand, the thing that I'm going to describe to people when I tell them what I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few brand logos, and I want you to think of 3-4 words that describe the brand that's on the screen, or rather the logo that's on the screen. So we'll start with this one. When this word is up on the screen, think just free association. What are 3 or 4 words that come to mind? Give you another one there. What are 3 or 4 words that come to mind when you see this logo? What are 3 or 4 words that come to mind when you see this logo? And then what are 3 or 4 words that come to mind when you see this logo? Brands have baggage, and it can either be positive baggage or negative baggage. It's what people think of when they think of you, when they think of your name, John Smith, Mary Ann, Mary Jo, whatever your name is, what do the people think of as soon as they think of your name? In a perfect world, people understand what you do, who your customer is, how good of a product you offer. After all, Walmart, not necessarily the top tier product, but yet it has a huge, unbelievably large audience. Whether or not your product is a cost of very low or very high, is it a cheap product, a mass market product, or is it kind of a premium product that people aspire to get? How easy is it to approach? You know, Disney, for example, you find them everywhere. They thrive on accessibility and approachability. And then where you're, are you cheap and mass market, or are you high-end and luxurious and something that people tend to aspire to? Companies put a spectacular amount of work into branding exercises. They figure out what their word means relative to everyone else. They put in all these brand description words. For example, on the left-hand side, there's a Volvo brand study that talks about how they want pride on being known as Swedish, safe, family-oriented, maybe a little bit on the staid side. People used to joke around that Volvos look like the box that they came in because they were all squarish. I'm a Volvo freak, so I'm allowed to say things like that. When I was back in 2010, and I started going down the branding exercise, I came up with 3 words to describe myself. And the 3 words that I wanted to use at that time was technical, approachable, and likable. I wanted to make sure people understood that I was technically knowledgeable about SQL Server, that I knew what I was doing there. You could approach me anywhere, anytime, ask me questions, bring it. You know, I always love solving that kind of thing. And then likable. I had a personality. It was unique, and at the time, it was going for something that was unique in the industry. Now, your words can change over time, and my words certainly did. The more that you get to know yourself, the more that you understand the person that you are, the more comfortable you can be in saying a few words that really describe what sums you up well. For example, these days, the 3 words or phrases that I use to describe myself are pain-relieving, experienced, and provocative. I've gone and done this stuff before. I know how to relieve these pains. Even when we're talking here, like this, doing the consulting thing is something that I've done before. I've trained other people how to do it. You're going to learn how to do it too, and I'm going to say things that are going to challenge you and take you out of your regular plain old box. When you think about this, you need to choose a few words, and it's hard, right? We immediately think of, well, I'm a SQL Server person, or I do database things, and I'm nice, and I'm likable. So to give you an inspiration, these are words that came out of our FreeCon last year. I run this professional development conference that's totally free and invite only, and we talk to people about how they go about building a better brand and building a consulting reputation, or even just professional development reputation. And I had the attendees come up with words that describe themselves. These were some of the words that they used. Looking at this list helps you see that people really are different and that there's a huge variety of words out there you can choose from. One of my favorite phrases in the list, Matan Youngman, who was in the Israeli army, used the term special operations. I'm like, that's great. That's a part of your brand that no one can take from you. This is very unique to you. And if you want to embrace that, you can build it into blog posts, and people can remember, oh, he's a special operations guy. He's the guy we call, you know, whenever we need to aggressively knock out something in the database. You want to come up with initially 5 to 15 words that describe what you do, who you do it for, what kinds of pain you relieve, what makes you different, what are the things that you're proud of in your own life, the things that really shape the brand that you give out to other people. This is not easy. It's very hard, and it can take, half an hour to think through this. This is the kind of thing that you go back and revisit, say, once a quarter in order to understand where you're at. The more unique and specific you can be about the words that describe who you are, the easier it is for you to stand out from everyone else in the market. If your words were databases, trustworthy, and fast, just to pick 3 random words, everyone wants to be involved with databases. Everyone wants to be trustworthy. Everyone wants to be fast. If you're going to use descriptive or generic words like that, you got to be really specific about how you go about applying those, because everyone wants to have the same general idea. I'm good and you should pay me. The more general you are, the more competition that you have. You're basically saying, when I work with databases and I'm trustworthy, I'm competing with Microsoft support, the Geek Squad down at Best Buy, IBM, Accenture, EDS, HP. Everyone who ever works with databases is going to try to claim those same brand words. The more unique and specific you can be, the more people go, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Does it decrease the number of people in your market? Yes, but it also decreases the number of competitors that you have, and that's what you're really interested in. It needs to make stuff that stands you out from everybody else, and these become what we call your elevator pitch, or they drive your elevator pitch. When you get into the elevator with the CEO from Walmart and he asks what you do, you need to be able to explain it in 1 sentence or less. You need to be able to explain it very fast in a way that makes that person interested and says, oh, that is someone I'd like to do business with. Or many of them will not, and that's fine too. This is why you have to be comfortable saying your words out loud. You have to be comfortable saying your brand names. That's super awkward. When I first got started with technical, approachable, and likable, I felt like such a dork. I felt like an idiot saying those words out loud. But the more that I got used to it, I'm like, well, that kind of is what I was aiming to be. It does make sense to do those kinds of things. So now we've conquered the first 2 parts. We've talked about what your product will be, and we've talked about what your brand will be. Clearly by now you get that this isn't something you're going to solve in an hour. Learning it takes an hour. So then it's still a matter of how you pick out your exact product and how you pick out your exact brand name or your brand. Let's talk about the third piece, which is marketing. How do you get strangers to know what your brand is? After all, there's a gajillion of us in the SQL Server industry. Our newsletter has like 75,000 people in it, and they're all trying to relieve SQL Server pains. How do you get it so that the public understands what your brand is so that they call you when they're experiencing a particular pain? This is what marketing is. Marketing is really all about taking your brand to the public. And it's not that hard. I mean, people think of it as advertising, and to some extent it is. You want the public to memorize your brand name. If it's your name, that works just fine. And then those concepts about your brand name that just involve your brand words. You can be awesome to not have a brand out there at all. People think, oh my gosh, this is going to be so intimidating. How could I possibly pull this off? There are a lot of companies out there who would love for no one to know what their brand stands for. For example, in the US, Comcast got a really bad reputation for bad service, not allowing people to cancel. I mean, there are all these things where people were just cringing at Comcast. And then Comcast ended up changing their name, ended up switching around to Xfinity because it was easier for them to start over from scratch than it was to deal with all the baggage that their name had. You're ahead of them. You're ahead of them already. Now, granted, you don't have the amazing marketing money that Comcast has, but you have the advantage of starting out from scratch and picking whatever you want your brand to look like and how you're going to bring that message out to the public. As you go through and start this process, you want your brand name to be your name. It is so hard to get the public to memorize anything or to be able to recognize anything. And it's really tempting to use terms like SQL Superhero, and I'm going to buy SQLSuperhero.com. People aren't going to connect that that's you, and that someone else will buy a domain name SQL, Mega Hero or SQL Villain. And then people are just going to remember that there's a concept going around of superheroes and SQL Server. They won't necessarily connect you. You don't have enough time or money to monopolize that brand name. You need to have you as the brand name, just plain old your name. And then when you want people to memorize the name and the words associated with it, you have two options. The conventional old school way to do this is called outbound marketing. When you're watching a TV show and you see ads for a product, when you're watching a movie and you see product placement, these cost money, and companies are willing to do that because they've got to shove their brand down your throat. They believe that that's the only way they can get their message out as quickly as possible, and it costs a buttload of money. Advertising is insanely expensive. Inbound marketing, on the other hand, is just putting something cool up somewhere and saying, if you want it, here it is. You don't pay anything to get your news out there. You don't pay anything to advertisers or to ad networks or run Google ads. You just build something awesome and let people come consume it for free. You don't charge anything for it at all. If you know a topic really well, you want inbound marketing because you can go blog, present, record webcasts, build scripts and tools. This is about what you know and how you're able to help, but it also sharpens your skills. Nothing teaches you something as well as showing it to someone else. If you have to teach someone else something, you are going to learn it even better yourself. The tools that you're going to use for inbound marketing don't cost you any money. They sharpen your skills and they get the word out about what you do. And I think about, as I look at this slide, I really wrote it with a progression of left to right. The stuff that's easy is on the left-hand side, and then gradually you move over towards things on the right-hand side that are harder, take more seniority, but have a large payoff too as well, getting you out in front of a larger audience, and sometimes even have a revenue piece attached to them, like books, speaking at pre-cons, doing video classes, and so forth. You start at the left-hand side and you move across. You also start at the top and move down. You have to write content. You have to give presentations. You have to record them as videos. Holy cow, this is a lot of work. Now, hold on for a second. Remember how I was talking earlier about if you're a full-time employee of a large company, you don't have to do this stuff. The company may pay you to do it. For example, at our own company, our employees are encouraged to write, blog, present, do webcasts, whatever they want to do, and they get paid while they're doing it. But a lot of consulting companies actually don't. They don't charter their employees with, here, go get our name out there. They have salespeople who manage that for them. They go buy ads and whatever. If you don't want to do this stuff, that's completely okay. I am showing you this stuff so that you understand if you're going to be independent, you have to do this stuff, or you have to find a way for people to want to call you. Somehow people have got to pick up the phone or pick up the email and go call you in order to get that work done. Inbound marketing helps you pull that off. In order to do it, when you're building out these presentations, webcasts, blog posts, whatever, you want to put your brand in every single thing that you build. You tell stories about your experiences. For example, if you're the person who owns the special ops word in your brand, you're going to talk about things that you did in the armed forces. You're going to talk about things that make people in the armed forces different and how it survives tough strategies, or maybe when you're, or tough situations, or maybe when you're building sample databases, you give things like database full of operations or equipment, tanks and guns or whatever. And it even influences the topics that you choose to blog about. Because this way you're not only teaching people something technical, you are also doing inbound marketing that teaches them your brand. Here's the person that I am. We often feel very awkward doing that kind of thing. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to just shove my brand down the public's throat. Go check out what outbound marketing looks like. When you're a company that has an unlimited ad budget relatively, what kinds of ads do you put together to explain what your company's brand is? I pulled a few examples. Polo's a great one. When you look at an ad from Polo, this sums up exactly what they're going for. Ralph Lauren's company for advertising plays to the ultra super rich. They say, you know, here we have amazing spare time. We go off and play polo, obviously. We sit around at country clubs. We have wickets, all kinds of stuff, sit around drinking. It's a very classic American image, and so people end up buying their clothes thinking that they're going to look like the studs in this photograph. Let me just tell you, I tried that sweater. It does not make me look like that. Another example is Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton sells baggage, well, luggage, and Louis Vuitton bags need to convey an image of something amazing that, for example, in the bottom left in this particular ad, these are the journeys that there are journeys that turn into legends. As if Sean Connery just grabs a single Louis Vuitton overnight bag and drops off on a beach somewhere. Well, if you're going to wear a beach, you don't wear pants and a belt and a dark sweater. Come on now. That's ridiculous. That, I'll give him that. But this is the kind of image that these companies go after, and it's not just conveyed by luxury brands. The same thing happens with mainstream brands. Chevy, for example, is running an ad campaign called Runs Deep. Chevy runs deep, as in they have all kinds of history behind them. And if you look at this picture of the Camaro, it's a relatively new Camaro. Down at the bottom in the reflection of the Camaro, it shows the much older Camaro SSs from back in the 60s, showing that this company's been around for a long time and it's been doing amazing sports cars for a very long time, or at least amazing muscle cars. Inbound marketing doesn't need to be subtle either. Inbound marketing can be just as in your face. For example, I did a session at SQLBits a few years back when I wanted to talk about performance tuning. And when I was doing the technical, approachable, likable thing, if you go over to Europe, Formula One is a big piece of Europe over in America, or in Europe. It's not big over in America. But if you want to talk about going faster, you talk about Formula One. This is a huge cultural thing over in Europe. And I'm a car guy. I'm a massive car guy. So I was like, all right, how do I assimilate Formula One into exactly what I'm talking about? And I talked about a session where we were taking reformed Formula One drivers. Times were tough, and it was much tougher to get into Formula One. We were saying we're taking old Formula One drivers and moving them into database administration, and we're teaching them all the skills from driving fast and translating those into how do we run faster queries. It's not like I was teaching people how to be Formula One car drivers, but I was taking these interesting tidbits and saying, Colin Chapman, for example, believes in adding lightness to his cars. Here's how we add lightness over to our databases as well. I use things like referring to TempDB as a public toilet and talk about all kinds of nasty things that are happening inside TempDB. The SQL Server uses it, our queries use it, all kinds of nasty stuff happens inside there and nobody cleans up from anybody. The thing that's interesting on this one to me is, if you look over on the left-hand side in my bio, I have a little elevator pitch right there in the bio. This sums up exactly what I do and how I do it. I make SQL Server faster and more reliable. I love teaching, travel, and laughing. If you get those two sentences, that's who I am. That's exactly who I am. And it's easy to be someone on social media that you are. I'm not saying you should be someone different. That never works. You need to be more comfortable with who you are and sharing that openly online, and you share it repeatedly one place after another. Inbound marketing means using the same message everywhere you go. Instagram, profile photo, profile message. I make Microsoft SQL Server faster and more reliable. I love teaching, travel, and laughing. This is exactly who I am. And on my Instagram feed, if you look at my Instagram feed, you'll see me teaching, traveling, and laughing, and eating lots of food and playing with my dog. Facebook, profile line. I make SQL Server faster and more reliable. Doing inbound marketing means being the same thing everywhere and building things that people want to go see. Whether they're presentations, whether they're blog posts, whether they're scripts, you have to build your brand words into everything that you build so people understand, in my case, that I've got a sense of humor, that I'm an experienced problem solver, and that I'm going to help you solve those problems as quickly as possible. You repeat your brand words over and over. even when you feel stupid, even when you feel awkward, even when you feel like everyone has known it, because believe me, no one knows it. I have said the same thing for the last 4 or 5 years. I make SQL Server faster and more reliable. And every now and then I'll get excited because someone will say, oh yeah, he makes SQL Server faster and more reliable. Every now and then people actually memorize it and remember it. But most of the time I still have to introduce myself to people because they don't know what my name is or what on earth did I do. Vendors, folks like Dell, Idera, SQL Sentry, all those guys, have to do exactly the same thing. They are repeatedly introducing themselves out in the public, and they are trying to show that they're experts in SQL Server. I'm going to Idera's website. If I go to idera.com and I click on resources or free tools, they have all these things that they want to give away to you for free to drive home what their message is. This is inbound marketing. Oh, sure, they're also doing outbound marketing. They're also buying ads, putting themselves in places. Dell, same thing. They have a bunch of things that people will go sign up for and go, here you go, it's totally free. Here's a set of videos. Check this out and you'll like while we're working and learn. Hopefully you'll learn a little stuff too. Vendors can be your partner in you building your own brand. Vendors need blog posts, presentations, white papers, videos, podcasts. They want help out on social media. They will actually pay you to build it once you've established that you have your own presentations, white papers, blog posts. Once you've shown that you're an expert in building up your own brand, vendors will pay you to help build up both their brand and yours, so you can actually get paid while you're doing this as well. So what we talked about here and across the span of the last hour is product. What pain are you going to relieve? How are you going to relieve it? And how are you going to be words that define exactly what makes you unique and valuable inside your market? How you're going to get that message out in terms of marketing. Now, this is what becomes interesting about consulting and contracting. If you want to be a consultant and you want to hang your shingle outside, hang a sign out saying, hey, I'm, Anna May, this is the service that I provide, you have to do all three of the top. You have to come up with the product. You have to come up with the brand. You have to come up with the marketing. No one is going to do this for you unless you pay them, either as an employee, as a contractor. There are companies out there who will specialize in building your brand and building up your marketing. This is, I'm not going to lie, long, grueling, hard work. Not everyone wants to do this, and that's fine. My goal here in this session was to show you a map and say, here's what's involved in this journey. If you want to, goodness, if you want to take this journey, that's totally fine. If you don't, go be an employee. Go work for a consulting firm. Go work for a contracting firm, or keep doing what you do today. I used to think when I was a database administrator, oh my God, the grass has got to be so much greener on the other side. I bet if I go into consulting, I'm going to solve the world's toughest problems. It's going to be amazing. There will be showers of confetti everywhere. And sometimes there are. But it's also a lot of grueling hard work in order to get your branding, your marketing, and your product exactly right. If you don't do the product work, the brand work, and the marketing work, sales sucks. Sales becomes an issue of, I always want to put something next to my ear like I'm on the phone and all I have here is a mouse. Sales becomes a matter of you cold calling strangers and saying, hey buddy, you interested in having any SQL Server work done? And then you got to give a really crappy rate out. You're going to be working for like 50 bucks an hour, 100 bucks an hour, because you are starving. You don't have any other choice. You're having to beat the street and go hit cold calls to see if anyone's interested, and then you're competing with them not paying anything at all. They would rather just go Google or go research to find the stuff that they're going to look to find to relieve. So what I'm driving at here is, if you don't do those top three, you are not going to be a good independent consultant. You're not going to be a profitable independent consultant. You're going to have a tough time getting any work come through the door. If you do knock yourself out doing the top three, you can do great as an independent. Just know that it takes a lot of hours in order to pull this off. The classic joke amongst consultants and independents is, Why work 40 hours a week for someone else when you can work 80 hours a week for yourself? And that's exactly what it is. If you want to go do this product and branding and marketing work, it's going to take 80 hours a week in order to pull it off and get your feet off the ground. If you don't put that work in, you're not going to make enough that you're going to be happy switching over just from, say, database administration or systems administration. Wanted to make sure that I painted a really clear and accurate picture of what it's like to go into independent consulting or contracting. It's doable. I just want to paint the dark picture side too of all the work that you've got to do in order to be effective, rather than just jumping into a company and having someone else do the work for you. So that's everything that I wanted to cover today. If you've got any questions, anything at all, I will not read your name, or Neil and I will not read your name. We'll only read what the question is, just so that that way you can ask questions and be kind of sort of anonymous. Feel free to put your questions in over in the questions pane. There aren't any in there right now, so now's your chance to jump in. We'll only wait a few minutes to see if questions come in before we bail. If you hear a jackhammer, there's some kind of work going on up in my apartment here. The downside of working in a, or living in a, well, working from home. Is there, I don't know if there is a downside from working at home. Of course, half the people, if you work at an office, there's work going on there as well. So, no questions. Oh, good.
Brent, it's Neil here. And we have some questions coming in, by the way, so we'll get to those in a minute.
Oh, good.
So I have one is kind of effectively doing, attending events like SQL SAS Days, the bigger ones like SQL Bits and SQL Summits, is how do you effectively kind of market yourself at those type of events? What kind of activities would you say would be useful to do at those events to kind of let your fellow peers and everybody else know who you're about, especially if you're coming into this kind of new consulting area?
Yeah. Have one page, one piece of paper, and it can be front and back, that describes what you do and then how to go about hiring you. Here, email me here, phone call me here. But if I have one page that when someone hands to me and says, here's exactly what I do, it's so much more valuable than a business card, because people pass business cards back and forth, and honestly, most of the time, folks just chuck them. I need to know why I would call you. And it sounds really funny to say that, everyone that you talk to may have a use for your services. I don't usually hire out other consultants, but I want to see what they do so I can give it to my clients. And I know a lot of people who are just starting out there in consulting are thinking, why would you ever give work to someone else? Because there's a lot I don't do. There's a lot I don't know. I don't know anything about BI. I don't know anything about security. There's certain shared storage. We don't tackle shared storage work anymore. So if I have one piece of paper that describes the thing that this person is really good at, like describing the problems that they're good at going and fixing, that will get you so far. I will fold that up and put it in my pocket, but that is the kind of thing that I'll go immediately email clients or friends, people I know who are having the same problem, and go, hey, there's this person that you may want to talk to. It doesn't have to look professional. It doesn't have to look amazing. Just do it in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint to just kind of lay out and say, here's what I'm good at. Here's a few things that I've done in the past. Doesn't have to look like a resume, but just be specific about what you want to do and why I would call you and how to get a hold of you.
Excellent. Okay, so we've had some questions come through. So let's start with the first one through. So this was, what challenges have you reckoned with so far? So what's your kind of major challenges you've encountered?
Man, the tough one, initially early on, it was easy being a single one-loner consultant, because people would just call you and say, here, will you do this? Yes, sure, or whatever it is. Yeah, if you're going to pay me money for it, I'm going to go do it. But as you start to scale out larger, it's terrifying hiring your first person. Oh my God, there's so much accounting work, insurance work, legal work that you have to do. So you kind of want to make a decision early on. Am I going to do this as a lifestyle? Is this going to be something that I'm going to do just to take care of myself? Or is this something where I want to go hire people? Because if you want to hire people, you need a relationship with an accountant, a lawyer, a human resources professional. It is way harder work as opposed to just doing it yourself. Another thing that's very important is there's this great webcast called, and I'm going to use the Safe for Work version, FU Pay Me. And it sounds crazy, but there's this a common problem amongst freelancers and independents where the customer, after you get done with some work, will say, you know what, this really wasn't exactly what I wanted. I'd like to negotiate this down. Or I'm having a little financial trouble. I'm going to have to pay you later. So we haven't experienced this because we just got lucky in terms of getting the right customers on board early. But something that I hear widespread amongst independent consultants is one of the trickiest parts is getting paid. So look for the webcast "FU Pay Me" by Mike. I've forgotten Mike's last name, but really good webcast explaining how you go about getting paid from clients and what's important there. The other thing I would caution you against is selling blocks of hours. When I first got started, I sold blocks of hours, say like a 40-hour package or an 80-hour package, and it seemed really attractive at first. It seemed like a win for everybody. I got a chunk of cash that I could put away. The client got a chunk of hours that they could call me on. But then clients ended up thinking they could call me at the drop of a hat and use like 15 minutes of time. And it wasn't a very fair relationship with me. I ended up losing a lot of billable time because the client would say, I've got to be able to call you at 9 o'clock for 30 minutes. And then I would lose other clients, and then they would say, well, really, I know we blocked you out for 4 hours, but I'm really only going to use 15 minutes. So I would be really careful about selling blocks of hours. When you're early and you're desperate, it may be something that you have to do. I would just not want to use that as a long-term strategy.
Another question, should I open my company as I'm going to say LLC or S Corp?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great question for U.S. people. You want to talk to a lawyer and or an accountant. So generally speaking, what I want to do is go find an accountant that I'm really comfortable with, and the accountant will know a lawyer or two that he's worked with on small business startups before. All accountants and lawyers will give you a free 30-minute interview where you can just go talk through and say, here's what I'm getting ready to start. I'm an independent consultant. I work with computer stuff. I don't plan on hiring him. Employee explains to you.
Sorry,
they have a set of questions that they'll.
Sorry, I think we had a bit of a sound issue there. Sorry, Brent.
Oh, okay. So the accountants and lawyers will have a series of questions that they will ask you as well, and then this will help you figure out whether or not you're a right fit for them. The answers depend heavily on what it is that you want to do and how you want to grow. For an example of how complex the decisions are, go search for The Startup Lawyer. I want to say it's thestartuplawyer.com. It may not be that, but look for The Startup Lawyer, How I'd Start a Company. And this is a blog post written by a .com lawyer who goes through and lays out what he would do for equity vesting, how he'd handle capital, taxes, all kinds of stuff. Really short one-page post that links to more details, but it helps you understand how complex that thing is. For example, we started with an LLC because we weren't worried about being acquired. We didn't have an exit goal if we wanted to get out quickly. We weren't trying to evade taxes. There's all these. Plus, we have partners in different states. There's a lot of gotchas in there around how that kind of stuff works. So find a local accountant or lawyer. The other thing I'd say when you go to find an accountant or lawyer, talk to people in your peer network. For example, look at your user group. Is there someone who's local in your user group who is a consultant? Ask if you can talk to their accountant. Do they know any good accountants? Or even just ask during a user group meeting, hey, I got a friend who's looking at starting a company. Does anybody know any good small accountants? Or email someone in your city as well, because often there's really good resources out there. There's a huge community of people who are out who just focus on helping small businesses grow.
Thanks. So moving on to the next question is, has your blog been your best tool?
For me, I started blogging back around 2000, and so I had a lot of SEO, search engine optimization. So a lot of people would email me over the years and just say, hey, can you help with the problem on this? Or hey, can you help with the problem on that? So I would say out of all the journeys out there, mine was totally blog focused. You don't have to be. That worked for me. That just doesn't have to be the only option. Presentations work really well. Webcasts work really well. Building free tools works really well as well. And to answer it a little better too, like 100% of our leads come from the blog. People find us via Google and go, hey, we need you to help our SQL server is broke. Can you make it go faster? It almost all comes through the blog.
Excellent, excellent. So I think I've kind of a few different questions, but I'll put them together because they're from the same person. It looks like they're just extra lines. So how did you get your name out there for giving presentations and building your brand? Was the first question. Do you want to answer that one first?
Yeah, what I did was I just submitted sessions. I just went to SQL Saturdays, I went to user groups and just emailed and I said, hey, here's the 2 or 3 topics that I've built up a presentation on. If you're looking for a presenter, I'd love to help. That I'll go do it for free. And over time, you start building more and more presentations. The thing I would caution you about is make sure that your presentations focus on the pain you want to relieve. Don't just talk about something because you think it's going to be a hot topic or you think no one else is talking about it. Talk about what you love to do, because this is going to drive people at the end of the session to know who you are and know that you're associated with that thing. You only get one chance in front of them. You want it to be tied to what you do. But yeah, email user group leaders, submit at SQLSaturday.com. SQLSaturday.com has a ton of upcoming sessions. There may not be one directly near you. You're going to have to get in a car and drive. You'll have to go drive a few hours to get to one in order to present. This is just kind of one of the costs of doing that marketing thing.
And I've got one here of, what about face-to-face visits with local companies that likely meet the demographic of a company that would need your services, and are these typically beneficial?
So I have a really rabid reaction to it. I hate it because it doesn't scale. If you go and talk to one company, you're going to burn half an hour getting there, half an hour talking to them, and half an hour going back home. That's an hour and a half, and at best, you're going to get 1 gig, at best, ever. If you're lucky, that gig turns into a long-term kind of thing. But cold calling, even if they ask you to come talk, that's an hour and a half of your life that if you take that same hour and a half and you go write up a blog post and publish it on your personal blog, you can reach thousands or tens of thousands of people forever. For example, if a local customer says, yeah, I'm having problems with such and such a problem, can you come and talk about how you solved it? Go spend an hour writing the blog post on how you would solve that kind of issue. You don't have to give explicit details. You can just say, here's what the pain looks like. Here are some options to solve that pain. Hit publish, send them the link, and go, you know what? I'm not able to make it out there, but here's a link to a post that I wrote on that exact issue. If you'd like to have a quick 10-minute phone call, I can set that in at these times. Here are the times when I'm available. But otherwise, the face-to-face stuff just doesn't scale. It runs way too slow. We have a full-time salesperson right now, for example, and I don't send her out to go do those kinds of cold calls either because it just doesn't scale.
For marketing, or has it been your free script? So it looks like that's a kind of follow-up to the best tool question. So it sounds like we've answered that one already.
Yeah, not only the free scripts, but you've also got to do blog posts, presentations, webcasts, be out on social media. It's funny, the people who use our free tools, it's amazing how often people think in the community, oh, your tools must bring people to you. It's actually almost never the case. People who know about our free tools don't usually need our consulting because they go use the free tools and then go solve the problem themselves. The free tools really exist because they make me sharper, like when we write SP Blitz, when we build SP Blitz Cache, Blitz Index. These are tools that we use as part of our consulting, and then you giving them out to the public helps other people be better, so it's really just more of a community service than anything else.
So here's an interesting question. How to find the first client?
I love this question because it's everyone you used to work with. Everyone who's ever worked with you before, developers, systems administrators, managers, end users, project managers, these are people who you had an extensive face-to-face interview with, and they know that you're capable of doing what you're doing. So what you do is get out your black book, start emailing all these people, say, where do you work these days? I was wondering if if you have any need for database services. I was thinking about picking up some extra hours on weekends and afternoons, or is there something that I can talk to you about that? If you don't have if you look at your back history over the last 5 or 10 years of people that you've worked with, or 1 year, whatever it is, If you don't have anybody in your past address book that you could immediately reach out to and go, hey, can we talk about maybe doing some consulting work? You will not succeed as a consultant. I know it sounds terrifying and awful for me to say, but if you can't look back at the last few years of the relationships that you've built and people who've seen you in action, if you're the kind of person who looks at them and goes, oh, but they're idiots, I hated working with them, I couldn't stand them, bad news, that's what your customers are often like. Not all of your customers are awesome, laid-back, fun, beer drinking at work kind of people. A lot of them are not nice. They're facing a problem and they need to get it fixed. So if you can't look back at that recent history and pull a client out of there, consulting on your own isn't going to be for you. You're going to be better off going to a large company where they will bring the leads in for you. But if you go back through the last year to 5 years of your engagements of working with people, you know, at offices, people who've gone on to other jobs, other companies, and you can say, oh, you know what, I think they would pay me in order to do this. Then, and if you're able to get talk to them and get a contract out of it, you know, get your first 30-hour, 60-hour type gig out of there on weekends and nights, consulting may very well be for you. That past network is your easiest sale that you'll ever get.
So another question here, how many years of experience would you consider to start a career as a consultant, or depends on something, certifications maybe? So I think there's trying to understand, you know, what's the right time maybe to look at consulting?
It depends on what pain you're trying to solve. For example, today, for example, is big data. There's all the rush. No one has 3 to 5 years worth of experience dealing with big data problems who's just starting consulting. There's a lot of experienced consultants who've been dealing with it for several years. But if you're doing big data work, for example, you could start right now, even if you have 6 months or a year's worth of experience dealing with stuff like Hadoop, with Python, R, whatever, and you're pretty much going to be able to write your own check. Now, granted, you actually have to have that experience. Don't think that you're just going to go learn this on the side and go do it. People want to see people want to hire consultants who've actually had a proven track record, and they will talk to the people who you did that work for. It's not like you can just learn it on your own time and be good. If you're doing, on the other hand, something like C# development or Java development, go to Upwork.com. Upwork.com is a place where you could probably get started with just, say, 2 years of experience, maybe 3 years of experience, but you're going to have to go build up that brand in that market. That's what's going to be really hard. Doing this, the stuff that's on the screen, is easily a year's worth of work. You want to be doing this at the same time that you're gathering experience. But even if you only have 1 to 3 years worth of experience, you can go join a larger consulting company that's just looking for heads to bill. And that's not unusual to go after. Same thing with contracting firms as well.
So our final question for the session is, any tips on negotiating off-site remote versus on-site consulting?
When you say off-site work, you are immediately up against everyone on every continent. You are going up against people who are $20 an hour working from Romania. I know this because I hire people off of Upwork. I have a guy that I was using for an installer this week who's $25 an hour. This guy builds installer packages for a living. This is all he does. He's phenomenal at it, has great reviews, but he lives in a place that's so cheap that his cost of living is $25 an hour. He gets a buttload of gigs. If you want to do installer work, you are going up against this $25 an hour guy. If you want to get remote work, you have 2 ways of doing it. You can be cheap, or you can be really, really good at something that no one else does. So when we talk about, like, for example, make SQL Server faster and more reliable, the vast majority of my work is remote, but it's because we do this one thing, we do this one performance tuning engagement called a SQL Critical Care. We have tools built for it, we're super honed at this exact thing, and people also have a short sales cycle on this. It's an emergency. They've got to get it fixed within 3 to 4 days. Generally speaking, we have plenty of references of people who can say, yep, they absolutely fixed it in 3 to 4 days. But if you don't have that amazing track record, it's going to be really, really tough to get remote work when you're going up against $25, $20 an hour people from somewhere else. All right, well, thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks, Neil, for having me in the professional development chapter. Thanks, everybody.
So thank you, Brent, and thank you to everyone who attended today. The webinar will be posted shortly on the YouTube channel. The link for that is in the chat window, and I will be sending out an email follow-up to everyone as well for that. Thanks, guys. Go in and some point download 2016, enjoy it, and if you're in the consulting world, and hopefully some of these tips have been useful for you. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.